The little girl was taking pictures with her new camera, and the next second, two cars crashed right in front of her. Just then, a neighbor passing by said to her sternly, "It was your reckless photography that caused this accident." Terrified, the girl rushed home, her eyes wide with guilt, because every TV channel was reporting disaster news, forest fires, 2 trains derailed, and a Boeing airplane crash. The girl thought she had caused the end of the world, until a few days later, she finally learned the neighbor had been teasing her. Angry, the girl decided to teach him a lesson. She sat on the neighbor's roof with a radio tuned to the same channel. Coincidentally, the neighbor's favorite soccer match was on, and every time a player was about to score, she would unplug the antenna, making him miss the highlight moments. The neighbor was so furious he was grinding his teeth, and after several repeats of this, he completely broke down. His weekend was ruined, and her name was Amélie. But this clever little girl never attended school in her life, because Amélie's father, Raphael, diagnosed her with a heart problem and insisted she stay home to be taught by her mother. But it was all a misunderstanding. 6-year-old Amélie, like every little girl, wished her father would hug her from time to time. But he only hugged her during monthly checkups, and this rare contact made Amélie's heart race. Because of this, she endured a very unfortunate childhood. Raphael was a retired army doctor, withdrawn, rarely spoke to others, and his greatest joy was listening to the sound of old wallpaper being torn. Amandine, on the other hand, was emotionally unstable and mildly anxious, always polishing the floor until it gleamed. With no contact with other children, caught between her mother's nervousness and her father's coldness, Amélie could only retreat into her imagination, entertaining herself and sinking into deep loneliness. Her only friend, a little goldfish, became depressed from the solitude and often tried to jump out of its tank. Whenever this happened, Amélie would scream in fright, and her mother would immediately rush downstairs to help, followed by her father, who would eventually use a jack to lift the oven and rescue the little goldfish. After several failed attempts, it was her mother who couldn't take it anymore, and finally released the goldfish, granting it the freedom and companionship it longed for. Amélie could only watch helplessly, and before leaving, her mother also took away the fish tank. As compensation, Amélie was given a camera. She happily used the camera to take pictures, and even the clouds in the sky looked adorable to her. Except for the annoying neighbor, Amélie believed that bad people should be properly punished. Life is unpredictable. Every year, Amandine would take Amélie to Notre Dame to light candles and pray to God for a child. But this time, not even 3 minutes passed when God responded. But instead of a newborn, a tourist with a death wish fell into the square. Amandine passed away on the spot. Afterward, Amélie was left alone with her father. Following his wife's death, Raphael became even more withdrawn, spending his days crafting a delicate miniature coffin to honor his wife's ashes. Amélie sank into even deeper loneliness. Day after day, year after year, the seasons passed, the world outside was silent, and time slowly drifted by through the window where Amélie watched. Amélie lived on her imagination, longing to grow up so she could escape this lifeless home. Finally, at 18, Amélie left with all her belongings and became a waitress at a café. But life didn't change the way she had imagined. Her childhood experiences and her parents' personalities had left a deep mark. Except for co-workers and regulars, Amélie's life remained eerily quiet. She lived as an observer, like an outsider, afraid to interact freely with others. Amélie noticed that everyone had their own quirks. The manager enjoyed watching men cry. The failed writer was obsessed with scenes of bullfighters being gored. The cashier liked to imagine she was ill, and one co-worker frequently got her fingers stuck. Her co-worker's ex-boyfriend secretly popped bubble wrap under the table. Amélie even found that some cats, like children, loved hearing bedtime stories. And Amélie had her own little habits. She liked to sneak her hand into sacks of grain when no one was watching, collect nice stones to skip on the riverbank, crack the caramel on creme brulee, watch people's expressions during a movie's climax, and give money to homeless people when visiting her father on weekends. Amélie noticed details others missed. Her childhood camera had become a telescope through which she observed her neighbor's every move. She imagined embracing the world this way, but never took any real action. Amélie's life might have stayed lonely forever, until one event changed her fate completely. That night, the TV interrupted its program with breaking news. Amélie's favorite, Princess Diana, had died in a car accident in Paris, along with her millionaire boyfriend. Shocked, Amélie accidentally dropped a glass bottle cap, which rolled across the floor and struck a loose tile on the wall. To her surprise, behind the tile was a hidden space, a small metal box carefully stashed away by a boy 40 years ago. Amélie was thrilled. The box held a boy's most treasured toys, and it felt like discovering a treasure. At the same time, Diana's passing reminded her how fragile life was. So Amélie made a decision. She would find the box's owner and return it. If he was moved, she would go out more and help others, changing their lives. If not, she would stay in her little world. To escape loneliness, Amélie decided to give herself a chance and bravely take the first step. She left her room, went downstairs, and knocked on her landlady Madeleine's door, someone she hadn't visited in 5 years. Madeleine invited her in and began telling the story of her husband's affair with his young secretary years ago. They slept in the finest hotels across Paris, and to please the secretary, he even embezzled funds. After racking up 50 million in debt, they fled abroad and eventually died in a car accident. Madeleine, seeing Amélie as a confidant, showed her old love letters from her late husband. Now, not only was her husband gone, but so was the dog they once raised. But as for the boy who lived in Amélie's room 40 years ago, Madeleine knew nothing. That boy would now be about the same age as her father, so Amélie asked her father, if he found a childhood treasure, would it make him happy or sad? Raphael didn't answer. Such things had long been forgotten in the river of time. Luckily, after many twists and turns, Amélie finally got a clue from an elderly couple on the first floor. The old man had spent his whole life collecting tickets at the train station, and after retiring he developed dementia and would often punch holes in random places. The old woman loved to record everything in her notebooks, and in one entry she had written that the boy's name was Bretado. Amélie immediately looked up all the local addresses with that name, but all she found were young men, young women, or even someone who had just been laid to rest. None of them matched the Bretado she was searching for. Just when Amélie was feeling deeply disappointed, her downstairs neighbor Raymond called out to her. It turned out that Amélie had gotten the name wrong from the start. Raymond had another nickname, the Glass Man, because of a congenital condition that made his bones as fragile as crystal. Even a simple handshake could crush his hand, so every piece of furniture in his home was wrapped in soft cloth. Raymond and Amélie were somewhat alike. Amélie hadn't left her house except for work and visiting her father in 5 years, while Raymond had never left his home in his entire life. Though he always claimed to hate the nasty people in the outside world, he warmly invited Amélie inside and began showing her a painting he had been copying for 20 years. The painting was called Luncheon of the Boating Party, but there was one girl in the center holding a glass that Raymond could never quite capture. She was right in the middle of the scene, yet seemed completely detached from everyone else. Raymond's words held deeper meaning, as Amélie happened to be holding a glass in her hand at that very moment. Though he had never left his house, Raymond had an extraordinary memory, and he gave Amélie Bretadeau's address. Every Tuesday, Bretadeau would go to the market to buy a free-range chicken. He liked to roast the chicken with apples and then carefully slice it, savoring the best pieces alone. But today, Bretadeau wouldn't be buying chicken. He would stop in front of the phone booth, curious as to why it was ringing in an otherwise empty booth. And when he stepped into the phone booth, Amélie would immediately hang up, leaving Bretadeau to discover the familiar metal box, the one he had once carefully hidden, but never managed to find again. In an instant, memories came flooding back to Bretadeau. He remembered his favorite sports star from childhood, the neighbor girl's silky camisole, and the pile of marbles he had worked so hard to win, only to have them discovered by the teacher and scattered across the floor. Bretadeau believed it must have been an angel who brought this to him. He also thought of his daughter, who was about Amélie's age now, but they hadn't spoken in many years. He had heard that she now had a child of her own, and he felt it was time to visit them, before it was too late. Amélie felt a strange sense of joy she had never known before, a perfect inner harmony. In that moment, everything felt utterly perfect. The warm sunlight kissed her skin, the air was crisp, and even the city seemed peaceful. The once noisy life now seemed simple and clear, and a wave of love and the desire to help others completely engulfed her. On her way to work, Amélie noticed an old blind man she used to ignore. This time, she took the initiative to guide him across the street and told him, coming toward them, was the widow of a band drummer who had worn her late husband's uniform ever since he passed. The butcher shop had lost an ear from its decorative pig. The laughter nearby came from the florist, whose eyes crinkled with joy. The pastry shop had just stocked a new batch of lollipops. The scent in the air was a mix of cantaloupe and almond ice cream. Today, the ham and pork were slightly discounted. At the cheese shop, a baby was staring at a dog, while the dog was fixated on a roast chicken. After crossing the street, they would see a phone booth, and just ahead was the metro station where the old man was headed. Amélie completed her mission, leaving the old man standing there, bathed in light he had never felt before. Helping others filled Amélie with immense happiness. The next second, she saw Raymond eating alone, his lonely table mirroring her own, and once again, she felt a deep sense of solitude. Staring at the TV screen, Amélie unknowingly drifted into her own fantasy world. She imagined that, after a lifetime of helping others, she had become a saint adored by all. Her funeral procession would block the entire street. But there was one regret. She had never saved her own father. Amélie remembered that when her father was young, he had dreamed of taking the family on a world tour. But at the time, Amélie's heart condition delayed the trip again and again, and by the time her mother passed, they had never gone. Her father had long since lost the courage to set out. So one night, Amélie secretly took the garden gnome that her father had placed at her mother's gravesite. Soon after, her father began to feel restless, no longer as cold and detached. Raphael started talking more, asking about Amélie's life and showing interest in the world again, because he began receiving postcards from the traveling garden gnome, one from as far away as Moscow. Raphael was amazed, and with each new postcard, he began to look forward to the next. It was as if the gnome was fulfilling the dream he once had. In truth, Amélie had asked a regular flight attendant at the café to take photos of the gnome wherever she landed and mail them to her father. One day, Amélie noticed that the key was left in the door of the downstairs grocer, Collignon. Kindly, she thought to return it. Collignon often bullied his employee Lucien during card games, simply because Lucien was intellectually disabled. This reminded Amélie of the neighbor who used to tease her as a child, and she decided to teach Collignon a lesson. She made a duplicate key, and when Collignon wasn't home, sneaked inside. She swapped his depilatory cream with toothpaste, cut the laces on his dress shoes, reversed the bathroom door handle, and reset his alarm clock to 4 a.m. Satisfied with her work, Amélie left, unaware that someone else had been watching her through another telescope. The next morning, Collignon was jolted awake by the alarm, not realizing it was only 4 a.m. Out of habit, he went to the bathroom, only to find the handle mysteriously changed. Without thinking much, Collignon squeezed toothpaste onto his brush, only to end up with a mouthful of depilatory cream. With one long and one short shoelace, Collignon wondered why it was so bright this early, while none of the neighbors seemed to be awake. Hearing cats meowing near the trash cans, Collignon checked his watch and instantly felt a chill. Amélie's trick worked perfectly. Collignon slept through most of the day and didn't bother Lucien again. But the effect didn't last long. Soon, Collignon returned to his old ways, even worse than before, taking out all his frustration on Lucien. So Amélie decided to step up her punishment. After a long day, Collignon came home to find that his slippers had somehow shrunk. The bedroom light was strangely dim. When he instinctively tried to adjust the lamp, the bulb suddenly burst. Terrified, Collignon tried to call his mother, but the number connected to a psychiatric hospital instead. Panicked, he reached for a drink to calm his nerves, only to gulp down a mouthful of vinegar. He thought surely God was punishing him, completely unaware that it was all Amélie's doing. One afternoon, Amélie overheard her boss Suzanne sharing a dating tip. Just bring two lonely people together. Let them flirt a bit, especially if they already know each other, and soon enough, love will blossom. Hearing this, Amélie felt she had to do something. She knew Georgette often pretended to be sick, just for attention. And Joseph, her co-worker's ex-boyfriend, stayed at the cafe because he couldn't handle being alone after their breakup. So Amélie quietly told Joseph,
La pauvre. Quand on voit à quoi elle en est réduite pour essayer d'attirer votre attention. Il faut vraiment que vous soyez aveugle.
Joseph was shocked and couldn't believe it. After work, Amélie waited for her co-worker to leave, then deliberately seated Georgette at Joseph's usual spot and whispered to her mysteriously,
Qu'est-ce que vous voyez là? Mon tabac. Bon, je vous laisse réfléchir.
Then Amélie took the initiative and deliberately hinted to the newsstand owner about Georgette and Joseph's budding romance. The gossip-loving newsstand owner, of course, couldn't resist spreading the news all around the next day. With Amélie's behind-the-scenes efforts, Georgette and Joseph soon began exchanging glances. Eventually, they became a couple, and one day, their passion shook the cafe so hard it seemed the entire restroom might collapse. One day, Amélie saw a headline in the newspaper. An 80-year-old Swiss man had just received a letter written more than 30 years ago, but never sent. A team of mountaineers had discovered a crashed cargo plane from the late 1960s, and among the wreckage were undelivered packages from around the world. Inspired, Amélie decided to try the same trick. She sneaked into Madeleine's home and took some of the old letters her late husband had written. Amélie spent the whole night reading through it, carefully cutting out the most loving and heartfelt sentences. She reprinted the letter, aged it by washing and drying the paper, and made it look exactly like something her husband would have written himself. Habitually picking up her telescope, Amélie saw Raymond still working on his painting. What she didn't know was that Raymond also had a telescope, quietly watching her every move. The next day, Madeleine received the delayed letter and was astonished, especially when she saw it was from her long-deceased husband. In the letter, her husband expressed deep regret for his mistakes and said he was returning, eager to reunite with his beloved wife. Sadly, they would never meet again. Thanks to the recent newspaper article about the recovered cargo plane, Madeleine fully believed the letter was real. She kissed her husband's photo and finally forgave him, and forgave herself. Amélie, like an angel, would not allow loneliness to consume anyone. Because Raymond couldn't go outside, Amélie recorded the latest TV programs and secretly left them at his door, bringing the outside world into his room. Watching the videos, Raymond smiled, a rare expression. It wasn't that the programs were particularly good, but because, for once, his loneliness had eased. And on this day, Amélie, who had always observed others' love stories, encountered a curious young man. His name was Nino, and he was always crouched under the photo booth, searching for something. Nino's childhood was the opposite of Amélie's. While she longed for friends, Nino wished all his classmates would disappear. They always bullied him. The classroom trash bin was his nightmare. At the same moment, 9 kilometers apart, both Amélie and Nino once wished for the same thing. One dreamed of having a brother, the other a sister, just to have someone to keep them company. For some reason, when Nino looked up, Amélie blushed and quickly walked away. After meeting Nino, Amélie began to imagine her own Parisian love story. Raymond, meanwhile, seemed to notice Amélie's little crush.
Si elle a l'air un peu à côté, c'est peut-être parce qu'elle est en train de penser à quelqu'un.
Ah, quelqu'un du tableau?
Non, plutôt un garçon qu'elle a croisé ailleurs. Mais elle a l'impression qu'ils sont un peu pareils, elle et lui.
Autrement dit, elle préfère s'imaginer une relation avec quelqu'un d'absent que de créer des liens avec ceux qui sont présents.
Peut-être même qu'au contraire, elle se met en quatre pour arranger les cafouillages de la vie des autres.
By some twist of fate, Amélie met Nino again at the phone booth. This time her heart raced even faster when their eyes met. Suddenly, Nino stood up. Amélie thought he might speak to her, but instead, they passed by each other. Nino dashed after a man in the distance, shouting as he ran. The man seemed very important to him, but the man didn't stop. Instead, he drove away. Unwilling to give up, Nino jumped on his motorbike to chase after him, unaware that he had dropped something. Amélie, running behind, picked it up. It was a thick photo album. It turned out Nino spent his time under the photo booth collecting discarded photos, ones people had crumpled and tossed away in frustration. He carefully pieced them back together and compiled them into an album. It was one of his quirks, but Amélie noticed that on every page of the album the same man appeared, the one Nino had been chasing. He went to photo booths all over the city, took pictures of himself, then tore them up and threw them away. But Nino kept finding them. No one would visit every photo booth in town just to take ID photos, especially not good ones, and then deliberately destroy them. Amélie thought the man must be a ghost, someone long dead, wandering alone with no friends. Raymond believed the man feared aging and used this ritual to preserve his youth, afraid of being forgotten. When Amélie returned to the station, she saw lost and found posters everywhere. A typical girl might call the number, arrange to meet on a terrace to return the album, and decide in minutes whether to pursue a relationship. That would be facing reality. But Amélie wasn't typical. That was too ordinary, too boring. Instead, using the posters, she tracked down one of Nino's co-workers and learned he was working at an amusement park. To get closer to Nino, Amélie bought a ticket to try out the attraction. Nino's job was to dress up as a ghost and scare the visitors, completely unaware that the girl standing before him was the one who had found his album. When Nino finished work, he found a note on his scooter, inviting him to meet by the carousel's phone booth the next afternoon. But when he arrived on time the next day, a passerby handed him the receiver of a public phone. Following the arrows drawn on the ground, Nino walked up the hill. He grew more and more curious. What kind of girl had found his photo album? When he reached a statue, there were no more arrows to follow. Just then, a child spoke to him. Nino felt puzzled. Following the direction the statue's finger was pointing, he noticed a telescope perfectly aimed, right at the girl who had found his album. The girl was completely covered, her face hidden, with the album perfectly intact. At that moment, the phone nearby rang again. Nino wanted to know who this girl was. Opening the album, he saw playful photos arranged to form the question, "Do you want to meet me?" Without a doubt, Nino's curiosity was fully piqued. Soon, posters appeared all over the metro. Nino wanted to know when and where he could meet Amélie. Nino and Amélie were very much alike. One lonely in silence, the other lonely in the crowd. Nino was so excited he couldn't sleep. For the first time in his life, he was full of joy and anticipation over a girl, fantasizing she might appear at any moment. Meanwhile, Amélie decided to leave a message for Nino in the way he liked, through a photo. But when Amélie pulled back the curtain of the photo booth, she was shocked to see someone unexpected, the very man from the album. Nino had been chasing that man the other day, surely wanting to know who he was. Amélie suddenly came up with a brilliant plan. As expected, Nino found the photo in the booth. Meet at 4 p.m. at the café. But Nino was late. For Amélie, there were two possibilities. First, Nino didn't find the photo. Second, he found it, but didn't have time to piece it together. because he had been kidnapped by 3 bank robbers as a hostage during a police chase. Though the robbers escaped, a car accident occurred. When Nino awoke, he had lost his memory. A driver with a criminal record mistakenly thought Nino was a fugitive and smuggled him to Istanbul. There, Nino met a group of Afghan extremists who persuaded him to go to Russia and steal a nuclear bomb. But their truck hit a landmine at the border. Nino, the sole survivor, was taken in by local shepherds and became a simple-minded man with no memory. Such a man, Amélie thought, might not be worth waiting for. But in the next moment, Nino walked through the cafe door. Perhaps there had just been traffic. Amélie watched Nino from the shadows, but in the end she couldn't help but step up behind him. Looking at the masked figure in the photo and comparing it to the girl behind him, Nino realized this was the person he'd been searching for. But Amélie denied it and quickly retreated to the corner. Realizing she still lacked the courage to face Nino, she asked Gina to secretly slip a note into Nino's pocket. Nino sat and waited a while longer but eventually left, disappointed. Only then did Amélie finally relax, her nerves unraveling like spilled water. She couldn't bring herself to take the first step. Amélie knew that if she didn't want to stay lonely, if she didn't want to keep living in fantasy, she had to be brave and take that first step. Meanwhile, Nino found the note in his pocket, but he wasn't annoyed or upset. He came to the meeting place once again. Suddenly, Nino turned his head. The photo booth had just produced a fresh new photo of that man. Nino pulled back the curtain, and at once, everything became clear. The man wasn't a ghost or someone afraid of aging. He was simply a photo booth repairman. That's why he traveled around taking photos to test if the booths worked. Nino's mystery was finally solved, and Amélie saw it all. She had deliberately called the man so Nino could find the answer himself. With new determination, Amélie stepped forward. She was ready to face Nino. Just then, a long trailer blocked her path. By the time the truck passed, Nino was gone. Amélie felt both disappointed and relieved. She had escaped this time and could try again next time. But when she returned to the cafe, she was told that Nino had gone out with Gina. Heartbroken, Amélie rushed home, tore down Nino's posters, and tried to calm herself by baking a cake, only to find she had run out of flour. Then Amélie couldn't help but fantasize, imagining Nino downstairs, buying her some flour and sneaking into her room. The thought made her smile unconsciously. Perhaps Nino would even tease the curtain playfully. Suddenly, Amélie really heard the curtain rustle, but it was only a cat. Amélie was filled with regret over her constant hesitation and cowardice, letting her happiness slip away. The beautiful scenes she had imagined would never happen. Tears streamed down Amélie's face. Her heart stopped when the doorbell rang. Outside, it was Nino's voice. It turned out Gina wasn't on a date with Nino. She had simply wanted to screen him for Amélie, who had never been in love before. Nino passed the test and got Amélie's address, but Amélie still didn't open the door. Nino used a method Amélie loved, slipping a note under the door saying he would return. Amélie peeked out the window, and Nino seemed to sense her gaze, turning to look, causing her to hurriedly pull back her hand. Just then, the phone rang. It was Raymond. He told Amélie to go to the bedroom and turn on the TV where a special tape awaited.
Vous n'avez pas des os en verre. Vous pouvez vous cogner à la vie. Si vous laissez passer cette chance, alors avec le temps, c'est votre cœur qui va devenir aussi sec et cassant que mon squelette.
Amélie suddenly understood she and Raymond were so alike. If she kept hesitating, her future would be sealed. But by then, the street was already empty. Frantically, Amélie opened her door, only to run straight into Nino, who was about to ring the bell. Nino tried to speak, but Amélie pressed her finger to his lips. She led him inside and kissed him, first on the upper left lip, then the right side of his neck, and finally on his left eye. And so, Amélie finally tasted the sweetness of love. If you stroll through Paris today, you might see Amélie and Nino wandering the streets together, whispering words meant only for each other. They are no longer alone. On a bright afternoon, Bretado is watching over his daughter and grandson. The garden gnome has returned home, and Amélie's father locks his garden gate and takes a taxi to the airport, finally setting off on the trip he once dreamed of. Collignon has discovered a love for reading and speaks much less. Raymond has finally mastered painting the girl with the bottle, and now has an apprentice. Even the failed writer's words have been written on the wall, gradually noticed by passers-by. The lonelier one is, the easier it is to fall into fantasy. The film gives us an idealized ending, and Amélie is an idealized angel. But in truth, anyone can be an Amélie, an angel to themselves and to others. For those filled with love yet trapped in loneliness, just like Raymond, even they can inspire courage in others. Amélie's journey from monotonous loneliness to stepping forward and embracing life. It seems simple, but in reality, many lonely souls fear taking that first step. Rather than hesitating endlessly over gains and losses, watching your heart wither and your joy fade, why not try stepping out with curiosity and courage? You may find simple, beautiful stories waiting. As the poet once wrote, "Without you, whom would I share these splendid moments with?"